The station drifted in quiet orbit around a blue-white gas giant, its long rings shining like thin glass. Inside, the research decks were calm, filled with soft light and low voices from many species who had learned to share space without fear. Humans were new here, still watched with interest, but already liked for their patience and humor. Eli Warren walked through the main common room with a tablet under his arm. He moved a little faster than most humans, not because he was nervous, but because his mind never stayed still. He was an engineer and problems followed him everywhere. He liked it that way. Problems could be solved. The common room was busy. Soft floating chairs adjusted to different bodies. Tables changed height and shape on request. Conversations overlapped in many languages, translated by implants or wristbands. Eli nodded to a few people as he passed. Most of them were not human. He stopped near a wide window that showed the planet below. He liked this spot. It reminded him how small he was and how far from Earth. The thought usually made him smile. Eli, a warm voice said behind him. He turned and smiled wider. Doctor. Sire Latan was approaching, her long stride easy and confident. She was taller than him by half a head, with smooth silver-blue skin and dark eyes that reflected light like polished stone. Her species, the viral, were known for curiosity and playfulness. They had no natural fear response the way humans did. To them, most things were interesting, not dangerous. "You finished the power reroute?" she asked. "Almost," Eli said. "I just need one more calibration cycle. Then the lab won't flicker every time someone runs a deep scan." Sirla laughed, a soft clicking sound that humans had come to understand as amusement. "Good. The flicker makes my eyes itch." They stood together by the window, watching the slow turn of the planet. Their conversations were easy. They had worked together for months, and trust had grown without either of them really noticing when it started. Around them, the common room felt relaxed. Music played quietly from a speaker that adjusted sound for different hearing ranges. A group of researchers nearby were laughing over a shared meal. Sirla leaned closer to Eli to point at something on his tablet. As she did, someone bumped into her from behind. She stumbled forward with a surprised sound. Before Eli could react, she dropped down and landed squarely on his lap. For a moment, everything froze. To the others in the room, it looked harmless. The viral often used physical contact to show comfort or humor. Sitting on someone was not a private or intimate act to them. It was closer to leaning on a table or sharing space on a bench. Sirla blinked, then laughed again. "Ah, poor balance," she said lightly. She did not move right away. Her weight rested easily, her posture relaxed. She placed one hand on the arm of the chair to steady herself. Eli did not laugh. His body reacted before his thoughts could catch up. His breath caught in his chest. His muscles tightened, not in fear but in alertness. His heart rate shifted, strong and steady. A deep sense of focus spread through him, sharp and clear, like the moment before solving a hard problem. He was suddenly very aware of Sirla, not in a way that felt embarrassing or exciting, but in a way that felt serious, protective, grounded. His mind, trained by years of stress, responsibility, and human history, reached back to instincts older than language. Proximity, trust, weight, vulnerability, something clicked into place. Sirla felt the change before she saw it. Eli's posture was different. He was no longer relaxed. His hands, which had been resting at his sides, shifted slightly, open but ready. His eyes were focused not on her body but on the space around them. "You all right?" she asked, tilting her head. "Yes," Eli said. His voice was calm, too calm. "You can stay there if you want, or stand. Either is fine." That made her pause. Humans usually reacted with jokes or nervous movement in situations like this. Eli did neither. Around them, the room had barely noticed. A few people glanced over and went back to their conversations. Sirla studied Eli's face. There was no discomfort there, no desire. Instead, there was something she could not name. Stability, maybe. attention. After a second, she stood and stepped back, smoothing her coat. "Thank you," she said. "No harm done." "No harm," Eli agreed. They returned to their positions by the window, but the air between them felt different, not tense, just heavier. Sirla spoke first. "Your species is interesting," she said. "You react very strongly to small things." Eli smiled faintly. "We had to. Earth was not gentle." She accepted that answer without question. The viral did not push when curiosity met a boundary. It was one of the reasons humans found them easy to work with. They talked a little longer, then parted ways. Eli headed back toward the engineering deck. As he walked, he noticed small changes in himself. He adjusted his path without thinking so he could see the corridors Sirla often used. He made a mental note to double-check safety systems near her lab. He felt a quiet satisfaction at the thought of making her work easier. He did not question any of it. On Earth, these instincts had once kept families alive in harsh environments. They had driven humans to build shelters, share food, and stand watch through long nights. In space, they had gone quiet, unused. Until now. Sirla, meanwhile, returned to her lab with a faint sense of confusion. She replayed the moment in her mind, not because it embarrassed her, but because it felt important. Humans were warm, emotionally rich beings, but Eli's reaction had been different from anything she had seen before. Later that cycle, she noticed Eli outside her lab adjusting a panel. "I thought you said tomorrow," she said. "I finished early," he replied. "Figured I'd make sure your systems are stable." "That is kind of you," she said. He nodded, already focused on his work. When she stepped closer, he shifted slightly, not away from her, but so he stood between her and the open corridor. She frowned gently. "Eli, yes, you are very attentive today." He considered that. "Am I?" "Yes," she said. "It is noticeable." He looked at her, really looked at her, and then gave a small, honest smile. "Then I'll try not to be distracting." She felt something warm at that, though she did not know why. Across the station, sensors quietly recorded human neural activity as part of routine health monitoring. Eli's readings showed subtle but clear changes. Nothing alarming, nothing dangerous. Just a human being doing what humans had always done when a bond began to form. No one noticed the data yet. And no one, least of all Sirla, understood what that brief, playful moment in the common room had truly started. The next cycle on the station began like any other, with soft lights rising slowly to match human sleep rhythms and station time. Eli woke before his alarm. He lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling of his small cabin, listening to the quiet hum of life support systems. His thoughts went, without effort, to Sirla. That alone was not strange. He thought about his coworkers often. What was different was how his mind organized itself around her. His schedule, his priorities, even small plans for the day seemed to adjust, as if some invisible hand was moving pieces into place. He sat up and rubbed his face. "Get it together," he muttered softly. But there was no feeling of panic or loss of control. Instead, he felt steady, ready, like a long watch had begun and he had accepted it without complaint. When he reached the engineering deck, he worked faster than usual. His focus was sharp. He solved problems before they fully formed, rerouting power flows, smoothing inefficiencies, and leaving quiet improvements behind him. A few technicians noticed. "You're in a good mood," one of them said. Eli shrugged. "Just a good day." It was true. It felt like a good day. Across the station, Sirla was also noticing changes. Her lab felt calmer. Systems that often needed small adjustments were running smoothly. Messages she sent to engineering were answered almost instantly, often by Eli himself. She found him outside her lab again, this time checking an environmental sensor. "You are doing this often," she said, folding her arms in a relaxed way. "Is something wrong with my lab?" "No," Eli said quickly. "Everything's fine. I just like to be sure." She studied him, her head tilting slightly. "You like to be sure about many things that involve me." He paused, then nodded. I suppose I do. That answer surprised her. Humans usually soften truths to avoid awkwardness. Eli did not seem awkward at all. Why? She asked, not accusing, just curious. Eli thought carefully before speaking. Because you matter, he said, to the work, to the station, to me. The words were simple. They were also heavier than she expected. She felt a strange warmth in her chest. I matter to many, she said gently. I know, he replied. That doesn't change anything. That was when she realized something important. He was not trying to claim her time or attention. He was not asking for anything. He was simply there. Over the following days, the pattern continued. Eli never followed her, but he was always nearby when she needed help. He adjusted schedules so maintenance happened when her lab was empty. He quietly added safety buffers to systems connected to her research. When she worked late, the lights in her section stayed at optimal levels, even when station power was tight. Other species noticed too. A Keth observer mentioned it during a shared meal. The human shows consistent prioritization behavior, it said, its voice flat and analytical. Is he assigned to you? No, Sirla said. He chooses this. The Keth paused, processing. Then a social bond has formed. Sirla frowned. Humans form many social bonds. Yes, the Keth replied. But this pattern is inefficient unless the bond is significant. That thought followed her long after the meal ended. She began watching Eli more closely, not with suspicion, but with interest. She noticed how he always positioned himself so he could see exits, how his attention sharpened when she spoke, even if he was busy. How he listened, really listened to her ideas, never interrupting, never dismissing. It was comforting, unexpectedly so. One cycle, an equipment test in a nearby lab went wrong. Nothing dangerous, but alarms sounded briefly and lights flickered. Sirla barely had time to react before Eli was at her side, one hand gently guiding her back, his body between her and the source of the noise. It's all right, he said calmly. False alarm. She realized then that her heart was racing and his was not. He was solid, certain. Afterward she thanked him. You move very fast. I practice, he said, for emergencies, for responsibility, he answered. The word stayed with her. Later, in a quiet corner of the station, Sirla accessed human cultural records. She had studied humans before, but now she searched with new focus. She learned about pair bonds, about long-term attachment, about how humans connected safety, touch, and trust in ways many species did not. She paused when she read about ancient instincts, about how small actions could signal deep meaning without either party intending it. Her mind returned to the moment in the common room, her weight, his stillness. Oh, she whispered. At the same time, in the station's medical wing, automated systems flagged Eli's data again. Subtle changes persisted, stable, focused, bond-oriented. The system logged it and moved on. Humans did this. It was normal, usually. Sirla did not confront Eli right away. She needed time to think. The idea that a simple, playful act had triggered something so deep unsettled her. Her species did not bind that way. Choice was always deliberate, reversible. Humans, it seemed, were different. When she finally spoke to him, it was in the observation ring. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. I have been reading about humans, she said. Eli smiled a little. That can be dangerous. She almost laughed but held it back. You are bonded creatures. Yes, he said simply. And sometimes, she continued, that bond begins without intention. He nodded. Sometimes. She turned to face him fully. Eli, did I do something to you? He met her eyes. There was no blame in his expression, only honesty. You trusted me, he said. My instincts recognized that. She felt a tightness in her chest. I did not mean to place such weight on you. I know, he said. That doesn't make it bad. But it is permanent, she asked softly. He did not hesitate. For me, yes. Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just real. And what do you expect from me? She asked at last. Nothing, Eli said. Not unless you choose it. That answer shook her more than any demand could have. She looked away at the stars. Humans are frightening, she said quietly. He smiled, not offended. We hear that sometimes. She took a slow breath. I will need time to understand this. I'll be here, he said, and he meant it in the deepest way a human could mean anything. As they stood together, the station continued its endless orbit. Systems hummed. Lives moved forward. And without violence, without force, without intention, a line had been crossed that could not be uncrossed, not because it was forbidden, but because humans, once bonded, did not walk away. The station did not change its rhythm, but the people inside it did. Word spread quietly, not as gossip, but as curiosity. Humans were social, yes, but this was something more focused. Observers noticed patterns. Analysts noticed data. And scientists, when they noticed anything unusual, asked questions. Dr. Havel Rook was one of those scientists. He worked in xenoneurology, studying how different minds adapted to shared space. He had seen many bonding styles across species, but the human data coming from Eli Warren caught his attention. The readings were stable, not chaotic. No signs of stress or obsession. Instead, there was alignment, purpose, a narrowing of priorities that looked almost efficient. Havel requested a meeting. Eli arrived on time, as always. He sat calmly across from the doctor in a small consultation room. The lights were soft. The walls displayed neutral patterns meant to relax most species. You're not in trouble, Havel said, noticing Eli's posture. This is routine, Eli nodded. I figured. You know we monitor baseline neural activity, Havel continued. Your recent data shows a sustained shift. Yes, Eli said. That makes sense. Havel raised an eyebrow. You expected this. I recognized it, Eli replied. After it started, Havel leaned back slightly. You understand that this response is rare outside close family units or long-term partners. Yes. And yet, Havel said carefully, there has been no formal agreement, no declared relationship. Eli smiled faintly. Humans don't always need those. Havel studied him. Explain. Eli took a moment. We evolved in groups where survival depended on trust. Sometimes trust came first, labels later. Sometimes labels never came at all. And this trust, Havel said, was triggered by physical contact. By context, Eli corrected. The contact mattered because of what it meant. It wasn't just weight, it was safety, ease, no fear. Havel nodded slowly. Your instincts interpreted it as acceptance. Yes. And acceptance, Havel said, activated a long-term bond protocol. That's one way to say it. Havel was silent for a long moment. Then he said, do you feel constrained by it? Eli shook his head. No, I feel clear. That answer stayed with Havel long after the meeting ended. Meanwhile, Sirla was struggling in her own way, not with fear but with responsibility. She had not asked for this, yet it existed. Ignoring it felt wrong. Pretending it was nothing felt dishonest. She watched Eli from a distance sometimes, noticing how he never crowded her space, never demanded explanation. He simply adjusted himself around her presence, like water flowing around a stone. One cycle, she invited him to walk with her along the inner ring. The stars were bright and the station lights dimmed to simulate night. I spoke with a Keth ethicist, she said as they walked. Eli glanced at her. That sounds intense. It was, she admitted. They believe accidental bonds should be dissolved. Eli stopped walking. Not abruptly but firmly. That's not possible. They think it is, she said, with therapy, distance, time. Eli considered this. Distance doesn't break a human bond, it tests it. And therapy, that teaches coping, he said, not forgetting. She looked at him. Then what is your solution? He met her gaze. Choice, yours, she sighed softly. That seems unfair, you carry the weight either way. He smiled gently. Humans are good at carrying weight. They resumed walking. The silence between them was thoughtful, not strained. Later that week, a symposium was held. Representatives from several species gathered to discuss cross-species social risks. Humans were the main topic. Havel presented the data. Humans possess dormant bonding systems that can activate under specific social cues, he explained. These systems prioritize care, protection, and long-term planning. A delegate asked, "Is this dangerous?" Havel shook his head. "Not inherently. Humans do not become aggressive, they become committed." Another asked, "Can consent be withdrawn?" "Yes," Havel said. "But the bond remains. Humans respect choice even when it hurts them." That caused a stir. Sirla listened from the audience. She felt exposed, though no names were mentioned. The discussion made her realize how deeply human psychology was shaped by survival. Where her species valued freedom above all, humans valued connection. After the symposium, she found Eli in the common room, sitting by the window again. "They are afraid of you," she said. He smiled. "They usually are." "Not of violence," she said. "Of devotion." He nodded. "It's harder to predict." She sat beside him, not on him, beside. "I do not want to hurt you," she said. "You haven't," he replied. "But I might," she said, "if I choose not to deepen this." Eli turned to face her. "Then I'll adjust. Humans do that too." She searched his face for resentment and found none. "How can you be so calm?" she asked. "Because the bond doesn't demand ownership," he said. "It demands care. I can care without possession." That was when she understood something important. This was not a trap. It was an offering. The station's governing council met soon after. New guidelines were proposed. Physical contact norms with humans would be clarified. Education programs would be updated. No one blamed Sirla. No one blamed Eli, but the galaxy was learning. One evening, Sirla returned to her lab to find a small object on her desk. A human emergency beacon, tuned only to Eli's communicator. She looked at it for a long time. When she found him later, she held it out. "I cannot promise permanence," she said. "But I can promise awareness." He accepted the beacon with care. "That's more than enough." As the station drifted on, something subtle shifted, not just between two individuals, but in how species understood one another. Humans were no longer seen as merely adaptable. They were seen as beings who bonded quietly, deeply, and without force. And once that truth was known, nothing about shared space would ever be simple again. The changes did not arrive with alarms or announcements. They came quietly, like pressure shifts before a storm. New guidelines were drafted. Training modules were updated. Signs appeared in common areas, written in neutral language, reminding everyone that human physical boundaries carry deeper meaning than most species assumed. Sirla read them with mixed feelings. None of the words were wrong. All of them felt too small. She had become more careful. She watched how she stood near Eli, how close she leaned, how long her eyes stayed on him. Not because he asked her to, but because she understood now that every action carried weight for him. Eli noticed, of course. He noticed everything where she was concerned, but he did not step closer to fill the distance. He did not complain. He simply adjusted as he always did. To outside observers, he seemed unchanged. He still worked efficiently. He still joked with other humans. He still shared meals and ideas. But beneath it all, his attention remained anchored, a quiet constant. There was a problem in the lower research wing 1 cycle. Not an emergency, but a cascading systems failure that shut down several labs at once. Power rerouted, doors sealed, confusion spread. Sirla was in one of those labs. She felt the lights dim and the air thicken slightly as backup systems engaged. Her pulse jumped, not from fear but from surprise. She moved to the control panel, fingers flying as she assessed the situation. Before she could send a message, Eli was already there. He did not break protocol. He did not force entry. He coordinated with security, rerouted access, and stood outside her lab door the moment it unlocked. "I'm here," he said calmly. She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "I was not in danger." "I know," he replied, "but I needed to be close." The words were simple, honest. They worked together until the issue was resolved. When it was over, Sirla realized something unsettling. She had worked more efficiently with him there, not because he helped technically, but because his presence steadied her. That frightened her. Later, she spoke with a senior viral mediator through a secure channel. She explained the situation in careful terms, leaving out personal details. "This human bond," the mediator said thoughtfully, "does it limit you?" "No," Sirla answered. "It supports me." "Then why are you troubled?" "Because I did not choose it," she said, "and yet I benefit from it." The mediator was silent for a moment. "Choice is important," she said at last, "but so is response. You did not choose the storm, but you choose how you stand in it." That answer did not give Sirla peace, but it gave her direction. The station council, meanwhile, continued to debate. Some members argued that humans should suppress these bonding responses. Others argued that doing so would harm them psychologically. Havel spoke again. "You are asking humans to unlearn what kept them alive," he said. "They can adapt, but at a cost." "What cost?" a delegate asked. "Disconnection," Havel replied. "Humans endure pain well, but isolation breaks them." That settled the matter more than any data point. No suppression was mandated. Education would be the focus. Awareness. Consent. Sirla found Eli in the hydroponics ring later that cycle. Plants from dozens of worlds grew there, each carefully balanced. Eli liked the place. It reminded him of Earth. "I need to say something," she said. He turned to her, attentive but calm. "Take your time." "I cannot promise the future," she said. "My species does not bind the way yours does. I may leave this station one day. I may choose paths that do not include you." He nodded. "I know. And yet," she continued, "I do not want you to step back. I do not want to pretend this bond does not exist." He considered her words carefully. "Then what do you want?" "I want honesty," she said, "and patience." A small smile touched his face. "Those are things humans are good at." She stepped closer then, not touching, just closer. "Will that hurt you?" "No," he said. "It helps." That night Sirla dreamed of standing on a cliff under a strange sky. She was not alone. Someone stood beside her, steady and silent. When she woke, she did not feel trapped. She felt accompanied. The next challenge came not from systems or councils, but from misunderstanding. A visiting delegation misread the situation entirely. They assumed Eli's behavior meant ownership, control. They confronted Sirla privately, warning her that humans were subtle manipulators. She listened calmly, then said, "He has never once told me what to do." They insisted she was being influenced without knowing it. That angered her. She sought Eli out afterward, not to accuse, but to understand. "Do you ever want to decide for me?" she asked. He answered without hesitation. "No, I want you safe. I want you honest. I want you free." "That sounds like control," she said quietly. He shook his head. "Control would mean I act to limit your choices. I don't. I act to support them." She watched him closely and realized the truth. His bond did not pull her toward him. It anchored him in place so she could move freely. The delegation left unconvinced, but the station had seen enough. In private reports, humans were reclassified, not as emotionally unstable, not as dangerous, but as deeply responsive. Sirla made her choice slowly, not in words but in actions. She stopped avoiding proximity. She allowed herself to lean into the quiet steadiness Eli offered. She learned his rhythms, his silences, his way of caring without asking for reward. Eli did not change his expectations. He did not escalate. He simply remained present. One evening they sat together by the observation window, watching a distant star flare and fade. "I think," Sirla said softly, "that your species is misunderstood." Eli smiled. "We're used to that." "No," she said, "not because you are weak, but because you are willing to carry things others would drop." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "We carry them because someone has to." She rested her hand beside his, not on him, beside. Close enough to matter, the station lights dimmed. The galaxy moved on, and in a place built on careful distance, something rare was happening. Not a claim, not a demand, but a shared understanding growing stronger, not because it had to, but because both sides chose not to turn away. Time did not stop for the station, but it slowed in small, meaningful ways. Systems stabilized. Research advanced. The debates faded into policy documents that few would read after the first cycle. What remained was quieter and more important: understanding. Sirla noticed it first in the way people looked at Eli, not with suspicion anymore, but with care. They gave him space when he needed it and trusted him when he offered help. Humans across the station felt it too. Something had shifted. They were no longer seen as strange emotional risks. They were seen as reliable. Eli never asked for recognition. He did not even notice it much. His attention was focused elsewhere. Sirla. She had not changed her life for him. That was important to her. She still led her research. She still debated fiercely. She still planned future assignments beyond the station. But now she included him in those thoughts, not as an anchor that held her back, but as a point of reference. When she considered danger, she thought of how he would plan for it. When she felt doubt, she remembered how calmly he listened. When she felt tired, she allowed herself to rest near him. Eli, for his part, did not feel rewarded or burdened. He felt complete in a quiet way. The bond did not consume him, it clarified him. His work improved, his sleep deepened, his sense of purpose sharpened. One cycle, Sirla was offered a long-term assignment on another station, a prestigious one, far away. She told Eli the same day. They stood in the hydroponics ring, surrounded by growing things, life in all its careful forms. "You should go," Eli said before she could finish explaining. She searched his face. "You did not even hesitate." "I don't need to," he replied. "It's good for you." "It would mean distance," she said, "possibly years." "I know." She waited for pain in his voice. There was none. "Only truth." "Does that not hurt?" she asked. "It does," he said simply. "But pain doesn't mean wrong." That answer stayed with her for a long time. The council offered Eli a transfer as well if he wished to follow. It was presented carefully, with respect. He declined. "She needs freedom," he said, "not a shadow." The council noted that response in their records. On her final cycle before departure, the station held a quiet gathering, not a celebration, just a shared meal. Many species attended. Eli stood near Sirla, not touching, just close enough that their presence aligned. When it was time to part, they walked together to the departure gate. "I don't know what this will become," Sirla said. "I do," Eli replied. "It will be honest." She smiled. "You are very certain." "Humans usually are," he said, "about the important things." She stepped forward then and did something deliberate. She placed her hand on his arm, light pressure, clear intention. Eli did not tense. He breathed out slowly, grounding himself. "I choose awareness," she said. "I choose respect, and I choose not to pretend this bond is nothing." He nodded. "That's all I ever needed." They parted without promises they could not keep. After she left, Eli returned to his work. The bond did not fade, it adapted. He planned around distance. He kept systems running smoothly. He sent messages when needed and stayed silent when that was better. He did not wait. He lived. Sirla, on her new station, found herself calmer than she expected. When challenges arose, she thought of human persistence. When choices felt heavy, she remembered how care could exist without control. Other species noticed changes in her too. "What is different about you?" a colleague asked once. "I was trusted," she replied, "without demand." That colleague did not fully understand, but they remembered the words. Years later, a new training module became standard across shared space habitats. It was simple. It explained that humans bonded deeply, that such bonds were not traps, that humans did not use them to claim or limit others. The final line read, "When a human cares, it is not because they must own, it is because they have chosen responsibility." Eli never saw the module. He did not need to. On a quiet cycle, long after Sirla's departure, he sat by the observation window again, the same place where it had all begun. The stars were different now, but the feeling was familiar. He felt connected, not tied, not constrained, connected. Somewhere far away, Sirla stood beneath another sky and felt the same quiet steadiness. The galaxy continued to turn, species learned, boundaries became clearer, misunderstandings became fewer, and humanity, once underestimated, was finally understood, not as violent, not as fragile, but as a people who, when trust was given freely, responded with a strength built not on force but on care that endured distance, time, and uncertainty. That was the human mating response, not desire, not possession, but the simple, powerful decision to stand with someone.